All right, boys, what's up, everyone? It's your man, the Mega Power TV, coming at you live on a Saturday. And I had promised to talk about this, and so I wanted to get into it. I will do the trading post review for September here in a little bit. And I've got the headset on right now, only so I can drown out the kids in the background. I'm sure they'll get picked up on the microphone. It is what it is. You guys understand. We all are boomers that play World of Warcraft at this point. But anyways, so coming up on the 20th year anniversary of World of Warcraft, we're coming up on the anniversary event. When I look back in time and think about all of the time spent in World of Warcraft, all of the years, obviously it goes back to Vanilla WoW, right? And the fond memories of that. I think that that has been the best time of the game was like '04, obviously November of '04 to like '06. Now early on in '04, you could talk about from like a gameplay standpoint that there was a lot of bugs, server issues, things we were all dealing with at the time. But man, was it fun. It could be annoying at times, but it was what it was, right? And the hardware we were playing on was awful, and I remember it would take a lot. Like I remember trying to alt tab out of the game, and I'd be like, "Well, this will be a few minutes." And so, like people don't know, like getting DC'd back then was like a big deal. Like you would not be able to just like click and then click. It was like, oh man, I'm in trouble. But anyways, getting back into the game, like 20 years into the game, what do I think about when I look back? Is what is the most iconic set? Because here's the thing, like World of Warcraft has gotten a little off point a little bit with the armor sets. Now in the last expansion and this one, it seems like we're trending in the right direction. I actually think Transmog is kind of to blame for that a little bit. I know the retail Randys really love Transmog, and I can see why, but I also think I don't necessarily think it's really improved the game. I think it's made collecting like a relevant thing in the game, but I don't really think that it was necessarily the right choice. I think it was a choice and it's now become so ingrained in the game that it's part of it. But I think it really minimized like the set piece part of the game, meaning that like back in the day you would see someone with like their tier set on and you're like, dang dude, look at that, I want to get that. Well, now everyone's playing dress up costume Halloween all year round, and you don't even know what gear someone has. One, you barely see people in the world, but that's an aspect of the game that's been lost. And it's something that, again, I'm being nostalgic for it, but like I don't know who isn't nostalgic for some of this stuff, because we don't have young people playing this game. It's all of us that have been playing for a decade plus, right? Or in this case, I will be coming up on 2 decades, right? So looking back, with that said, I think the most iconic set of tier in the game was tier 2. Now, I was playing, and I actually remember seeing tier 2 start to appear in. At the time, I was always in Ironforge, which when you look back, it's like, man, I was missing out on stuff. I would always hang out in Ironforge. I didn't even think about like hanging out in Stormwind to get the rallying cry of the Dragon Slayer buff. I don't know when I actually became aware of it or not. Like I would always hang out in Ironforge for some reason, which I should do a video on that. That is like the forgotten city in World of Warcraft, and I actually think it's like the best city on the Alliance side. I've always thought Dalaran was overrated. Stormwind completely overrated. Ironforge is like this forgotten city that like should we need to utilize Ironforge a little more is what I'm getting at. But anyways, and Darnassus. Though Darnassus is like at the bottom. There's not a whole lot of design to it. But anyways, so back to my point. The most iconic set, in my opinion, is tier 2. Beyond tier 3, beyond any of the current things, I think it is tier 2. And if you wonder why that was, like one, we saw a big jump in art design, and then two, the biggest thing was like the stat jump. The stat jump from like I've been a rogue for 20 years, right? So like the stat jump. The first time I saw a tier 2 helm, I was still chasing after the Shadowcraft cap, right? So like my dungeon set. And I was really excited if I was going to get the Shadowcraft cap, which I think I had to go get from. Oh man, where did the helm drop? Was that Darkmaster Gambling and Scholomance, or was it somewhere else? I can't remember where it was, but I just remember like seeing it. I was in Ironforge, and I saw a red Shadowcraft cap, and I was like, dude, what is that? And I remember running over and looking at it and like inspecting and being just like, oh my god, I want that thing badly. How do you get it? Because I believe I had seen the Night Slayer helm and it looked cool, and then when I saw the stats on the tier 2 helm, I was just like, whoa, that is a jump. And so, and this was back when one of the things I've kind of hoped for, and we'll get into this a little bit, is to actually have the original tier 2 like sets come back out. Because if you had the original tier 2, when they upgraded the models, you lost it. And I actually liked all of them. And a lot of people, like I've heard Asmongold and others say they were terrible, and they were plain, and they were, but they fit the mold of what World of Warcraft was at the time. And it would just be cool to have those come back. Like in a 20-year anniversary kind of thing where we've got the updated models. And if you could have like a throwback old model too. You know, since we're all playing dress up now with Transmog, it might as well be that way. But what I wanted to get into first is like, let's just go over the remix set that we're getting. And if you're wondering, man, what's up with him right now? I'd put some Tiger Balm on my hands, and I'm leaning into my microphone. But with where my hands are, I'm getting the Tiger Balm fumes going up into me right now. Just part of being old, man. And so let's take a look. I wanted to check these out. So right off the bat, let's just review these. You know, this is the Death Knight one. And there wasn't a Death Knight tier 2 set originally since they didn't exist. So they had to come up with something. And I think that for not having anything, this is close to what I would have come up with for a Death Knight. You see, it's got a lot of Arthas type theme to it, the real Lich King. And you see like the helm, kind of just like the typical Death Knight stuff. The boots look silly, but dwarves in general look silly. So I don't know who actually wants to play a dwarf. Same with pandas, right? But anyways, I think this looks pretty good. I actually did see a video for the other day. I rewatched the original like Wrath of the Lich King video or trailer back in like, what was it, 2007, 2008? I want to say it was around 7 or 8 when we saw the initial video where the boat lands in Northrend. And we see a preview of a Death Knight, and it is completely different than what we ended up getting. And not that what we got was bad, but I would actually have liked to have seen like, this should have been the classic set, and I should prepare that and pull that up. But it was basically just like your standard WoW set, but it had that Scholomance type flavor to it, and it showed a Death Knight standing on a rock, casting, and like ghouls and stuff were coming out of the ground, which ultimately we know became like an ability. But I actually thought that would have been kind of like a cool throwback to that. But considering what we've got, I think it's okay. Dragonstalker. I went and looked at the original or tier 2, like the non-remixed version, and I liked it better. The biggest thing what they do in today's current WoW tiering, which I really wish they would get an update. Like, we need a whole new engine, and I actually wish we would kind of revert the art style back to more of like a classic style with like a little bit of upgraded like resolution and texture. But the way it sits on the modeling and stuff, I don't like the models the way they are right now. The feet are always jacked up in all of the models. I don't know what it is about WoW. And then like the animations are a little weird, but the feet is just a constant problem in the current gen. But what you'll see here, and you'll see it across the Death Knight, the belts really get highlighted in current age World of Warcraft. And the feet always look stupid. There's just no way around it. But the belts stick out quite a bit. And then you'll see as we scroll down to the druids, there's a lot of like hip stuff. They always they focus on the belts and the hips and highlight that stuff. Um, but it's hard because it's on a panda model, but the dragon looks pretty cool. Honestly, I always thought like night elves in a tier 2 dragon set look better than the Drakthir. Like, and I'll show you guys later. But here, I always thought this was like one of the best tier sets out of the tier 2 was the mage set. The helm looks sweet. The shoulders, everything about it looks really good. This like it almost seems like a 1-to-1 because that's how good this set was originally. Coming down here, the Wrath set it always looked cool back in the day. This looks sweet now. This is what warriors are supposed to look like to me. Though I do think like the original Valor set was awesome for a warrior. So like if I was thinking of like an iconic warrior set, honestly the Valor set, the tier 1 and tier 2 sets are all good to me. Like the shoulders from the tier 1, I remember the helm, all that stuff. But the Wrath set obviously looks amazing. Clearly, back in the day, this was always like one of the best tier 2 sets was the Druid set. This was just like perfectly like fitting the aesthetic for what a Druid would be. And it was always a Night Elf Druid. And the females or like in your guild, the chick was always going to be a Druid or a priest. But this is just perfect. Transcendence was an awesome set. This doesn't look good on the Draenei model. Again, look at the size of these hips. Her hips are wider than her shoulders. Just imagine what that would look like, by the way, boys. Like, it's so these billy goats. It's funny. I've liked the Draenei, and I was working on a Draenei shaman, but again, it's the feet thing. You see this, like the boots look silly. These look fine because it's a night elf at least. The night elves have you can't see it because of the way these pants are covering it up. But night elves have like a weird pose that they stand in. The females are better than the males, but their legs are kind of squished together in a weird way. The hoof thing with the goats, I just don't like it. I get it. They're a goat, right? So they're going to have a hoof. And it's the same with the trolls, but I wish that we could have an option to turn boots on. It's always bugged me. I thought it's always silly. But I think they all need an update with how the models are. But Transcendence is awesome. I don't think it looks good on a Draenei. I also wish we could increase some of the size of the models. Like, I like to have a bigger character. That's why I've ended up playing like Zandalari Paladin. And I will be waiting for the day where I can be a Night Elf Paladin finally. But I don't like playing these small little races, and I didn't realize how small like female Draenei's are until you like play one. Down to here, monks. I don't think monks should be in the game. Like, we should get rid of them. Same with the Drakthir or Evokers. We should get rid of them. Shamans. I like this set. The shoulders I always thought were pretty cool. The helm is kind of plain, but I thought it was cool. The rest of it, I don't know. I don't like it that much, to be honest. I will say the monk set. If this monk set like was a shaman set, I would say this is sweet. But the monks, like, get him out of here. Same with like Evoker. Just get rid of Evoker and like take those specs that the Evoker has. And I like the concept of it is cool, right? Like, it's a mix of all the dragon flights. But again, look at this, by the way. The feet are like squished together. So this is like a Drakthir in its visage form. But like, look, your legs are... No one stands like this with like their ankles pressed together, facing out, and then like... Yes, hips do this, but like they're getting up and then this wide shape and then thin shape. And I get it. We're talking about a made up race, but like, again, no one stands like that. Like, nothing does. Like, you wouldn't do that. Like, the troll actually looks like what you would expect a real thing to stand like. Even this panda's knees it wouldn't actually stand like that, but okay. But I honestly, you could like break up the evoker specs and like divide them into like shaman, priest, mage, warlock, something like that. And instead of having a whole nother class, just give it a whole nother spec. Or give like the Death Knights like some sort of like different type of spec. Instead of making all these new classes, like which we don't get that often, right? But just I would like a little more variety in the specs. And what I mean is like the specs themselves now, I'm getting way off topic, but the specs themselves have become like you are a disc priest, this is how you play. You are a outlaw rogue, this is how you play. As opposed to like you're a rogue and you can spec into these things. Now we all know people eventually min-max, right? But I would just like to see like a little less of like disc priests play this way, holy plays this way, shadow plays this way, and more of like I'm a priest and I do these things, right? That's kind of how I would like the game to be. Other people seem to like having 30 different actual classes in the game because of the specs, because a disc priest is completely different than a holy priest, so they might as well not be priests. And so that's what I was getting at. But back to the topic, they kind of this armor kind of looks kind of plain, but they did the best that they could, right? They said they tried to make it after Nefarian, and whatever. All right, getting down here. Nemesis was one of the best sets, and I think it's because the helm just like stood out. And everyone always got Warlock tier before anything else, so your Warlocks were always geared up. This looks like what a Warlock should look like. Demon Hunters didn't exist, and I agree with what Asmongold said when I was watching his. They should have just taken what a Demon Hunter looked like in some of the vanilla content where they existed, and I agree. Shout out to like I want the Highborn back in. Like remember the if you would go into Dire Mall, and I forget what the one prince, it starts with a T. I'm probably crossing streams here with a Lord of the Rings, but basically like one of the prince like Highborn elves that was down in one of the Dire Mall dungeons. I've always wanted characters to look like him. Now it's close to the Blood Elves, but these guys had bigger shoulders. They were like Night Elves, but blonde hair, basically, right? But I've always wanted those on the Alliance side. So that's another off topic, but I just wanted to get that out there. So yeah, this looks like crap to me. Bloodfang was, in my opinion, one of the greatest sets ever made. This does not do Bloodfang service. One, Bloodfang should be spiky. The spikier, the better. And it also had a black like shroud coming out of the back of it, like that would be animated. That needs to be there. This hood does not do it justice. The gloves are kind of like current gen gloves. The pants, they're okay. It's kind of modernized. You see how like same with the Demon Hunter here, where I get the art design behind it, right? Here's the pad of armor, like you would have this leather attached with like the shoulder pad if you guys played, or the hip pad if you played football. Back in the day, that's what pads are like in there. Typically you have like thigh pads, but then like hip pad. But anyways, yeah, you get the idea. It just doesn't look good. It needs to be blacker throughout. This is supposed to be a dark set. It's supposed to be a spiky set. The boots, they look okay on here. They didn't do it justice. And here we've got Priest again, tier 2. Yep. Paladin. It's okay. This is probably the iconic set of classic World of Warcraft, and I don't think that this does that set complete justice. I think the dude who redid this on YouTube did a better job, but I would say this is not a bad upgrade. It needs to be shinier. Like this is a holy set, like so I would think like make this stuff just shiny, man. Like the boots look like lugs, but I looked at the original tier 2 set for comparison, and the boots were kind of crazy looking then too. So Here's this guy, which turns into that guy. The helm, I think, looks cool. The feet, I just don't understand. This looks like, I get that these are supposed to be little claws, but it really looks like recycled panda feet that they shrunk down. Yeah, looks cool. Looks plain. Looks plain. Let me pull up what I was thinking. So we've got that. Let's switch over here to window capture. And I realize most of you guys watching this probably already know all this stuff. But this was the updated tier 2, right? So this was a patch that we ended up getting back in the day to change this. But honestly, like, I think this actually, the colors, I'm going to look at off on the other page. You won't see this, but let's pull up another window so that we can see both at the same time. Window capture, add a source. We're going to add a new source. HD. All right, fun stuff, right? Who doesn't love tech stuff well on the fly? But if you take a look, I know this isn't a great side-by-side comparison, but it's the best we can do right at the moment. I actually think the color scheme on the original looks better. Now, I've seen a preview where you see the whole thing, and it doesn't look bad, but I don't think they did it quite justice enough. And so it's a little bit of a letdown, but it's cool that they did it anyways. What I want to talk about, going back to here, we're going to switch over to this. So back in the day, and here's exactly what I was talking about. I'm glad this came up. So if you can see this, which you can now, but I need to move here. All right. So this was what tier 2 looked like when I was playing the game, this top row. And I want to show you, you see the Wrath set here? No, okay, let's go through these. Like, obviously the Shaman set looks terrible. And you see, so the original Wrath set I think looks cool. The original Transcendence looks cool. This looks like what you would see like a mage back in the day, or some of the devout stuff, like a mix of it. I think it looks cool because it's just like an all yellow set. The Shaman set obviously looks awful. The Storm Rage set, again, is a green Shadowcraft reskin, which I think was fine because that fit the mold of a druid, right? The Mage Netherwind set, it's plain as can be, but it looks like a mage, right? The Nemesis set is clearly a reskin of the Transcendence set, except it's a warlock, but it's on theme. The Judgment set, I actually think it looks cool. It's bluish with yellow plate armor, which ended up being a little bit like a flop of what the Valor set looks like, right? For warriors. But I actually don't mind it because it's on theme. This chess piece is the same model that like the original Death Knight video was shown in, with like a color pattern of this Wrath set over here on the left. And so I thought that was kind of cool that like we were getting like the opposite of a paladin, right? A Death Knight. The Dragonstalker set looks awful. You guys can't even see it on screen here. I've got to extend the window. So yeah, then the Bloodfang set, again, a reskinned Shadowcraft set, but because the Shadowcraft set looked good, I thought this looked good. And when you saw it in Ironforge, like, the Shadowcraft cap was actually a really good cap at the time. And it's because it was just unique, right? A unique flavor. But I would like to see this old set. Now, I'm sure you could probably collect some of this stuff and get close to it. But again, it would just be cool to come back. Now, when we released the Tier 2 update, obviously there's some major, major improvements, right? Like the Wrath set completely, like they all look completely different, right? So they were all a major upgrade. But just imagine like if you were patched playing this game and you're playing this right here up top and you see this stuff come out. It was just this gigantic leap and it was like, oh my goodness. This is just crazy. This is the greatest game ever, right? And you're like, look at Wrath, look at Transcendence, look at this stuff. We didn't have shamans at the time on the Alliance side. And then I remember seeing a shaman, Tor, and being like, holy crap, look at that. Druids were everywhere. Netherwind stuff looked sweet. The Warlocks looked sweet. You saw a Paladin, you're like, oh my god, look at that thing. I thought Dragonstalker looked amazing. I remember like all of our Night Elf guys had full tier 2 instantly, and they were all running around. And then the Rogue set. And the Rogue set just blew my mind. I was just like, this is the greatest set that's ever been made, besides maybe Judgment. I would put those two top two, right? I've always been a Rogue, and so I would put the Rogue. Bloodfang to me is more iconic, but I understand why Judgment looks like what you would expect a Paladin to look like, and it's the best representation ever of a Paladin. Rogue, I think Bloodfang looks cool, but is it? I don't know. I actually think Shadowcraft might be the best looking set. Just even though it's plain, I think it's really on point, right? I think the name is great. But the Bloodfang set is awesome too, right? Like you can't go wrong there. And so I don't know. It's just, to me, it's the most iconic set. I'm excited for it to come back. A little disappointed on some of the sets, but honestly, this is a great time in World of Warcraft. I would like to see them remix the original dungeon set, the two, like what was the dungeon 0.5 sets. Tier 1 I could do without. I never enjoyed. I didn't think Tier 1 was that great. You guys can let me know if you think it was or wasn't. There was some decent sets in there probably. But I never thought it was that great. Tier 2 was where it all started. Tier 3 was on point with a theme, but Tier 2 was just amazing. Like what I liked about Tier 2 is it was all this update, but a lot of it didn't have like a theme tied to Blackwing Lair. Like obviously Dragonstalker made sense because we went from Giant Stalker to Dragonstalker, where we had these molten giants in Molten Core. Now we're stalking dragons, right? That made sense. But the rest of them, I liked that it was just like, boom, this is just the cool art design for the dungeon. It made you want to get in there and go get that stuff. Then you looked good and the stats were good, and we didn't have to play Halloween dress up like we do now because people want to chase a costume. They want to cosplay in a game as opposed to just collecting the good set. But let me know what you guys think. I know this has turned into a long video, but I felt like this video, like in this armor set, really deserved me fully breaking it down. Again, this is the most iconic set, the most iconic time. I actually think Blackwing Lair is the most iconic raid in World of Warcraft. And so you put it all together, and it is if you were ever going to bottle up World of Warcraft into a very, very compacted situation and be like, describe World of Warcraft, I would want to take Blackwing Lair, class vanilla WoW at that time, and the Tier 2 set upgrade, as this is the time in WoW to play. So smash that sub button, comment down below, let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you if you're tuning into the channel, checking it out. I do stream live on occasion. I wish I had a better schedule. I'm going back to school like a boomer in a midlife crisis, so I don't get to stream as much as I'd like to. But I appreciate everyone's time, and I will get the video for the trading post done today. It's your man, the Mega Power TV. I'm out.